Yeah, obviously, threats to employees are to be addressed seriously. Everybody here would agree on that. Bring that to the council. Be glad to look into solutions and put anything we can other than violating constitutional rights. We'd be willing to work on that, yes. And Alder Galvin, I can assure you there's nothing theatrical about my comments. It's all pure natural there. Fourth Amendment rights, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. That's a Fourth Amendment. And in Wisconsin, we're a one-party consent state, right? That means an individual can record another one without them knowing. That does not mean a third party can record others who do not know. That is a violation. Now, on the Congress, I read this at committee, congress.gov website, the Supreme Court has comments on this, on the Katz and reasonable expectation of privacy test in the Library of Congress. The test the court propounded in Katz v. United States examined the expectation of privacy upon which one may justifiably rely. The Supreme Court stated, what a person knowingly exposes to the public, even in his own home or office, is not subject to Fourth Amendment protection. But what he seeks to preserve as private, even in an area accessible to the public, may be constitutionally protected. So not just because you're not in City Hall doesn't mean everything you say is just open to anybody to hear. The capacity to claim the protection of the amendment depends not on a property right in the invaded space, but upon whether the area was one in which there was reasonable expectation of freedom from government intrusion. The court usually considers whether a person is taking normal precautions to maintain privacy, that is, precautions customarily taken by those seeking to exclude others, to be significant when determining legitimacy of expectation. Justice Potter Stewart concluded, wherever a man may be, he is entitled to know that he will be free. Now, the American Bar Association has a few comments that were interesting. This concern for privacy, even in public places, is echoed by our current Chief Justice John Roberts, who wrote, quote, a person does not surrender all Fourth Amendment protection by venturing into the public sphere. To the contrary, what one seeks to preserve is private, even in an area accessible to the public, may be constitutionally protected. Chief Justice Roberts also noted, as Justice Brandeis explained in his famous 1928 dissent, the court is obligated, as subtler and more far-reaching means of invading privacy have become available to the government, to ensure that the progress of science does not erode Fourth Amendment protections. Here, the progress of science has afforded law enforcement a powerful new tool to carry out important responsibilities. At the same time, this tool risks government encroachment on the sort the framers, after consulting the lessons of history, drafted the Fourth Amendment to protect. So I would just remind us here, there are important, sounds like safety issues that we need to address, and I wish we had been brought in earlier, because I would have loved to have had those discussions to do that, but not at the cost of our constitutional rights. Not at that cost. And that's not dramatics. That is, like I said, natural. Thank you.
Alder Brunette.
Thank you, Mayor. I had spoken quite a bit at the Parks Committee, asked a lot of questions, so I'm not going to be redundant, but I do have a few questions and points to make. What's most frustrating to me is this idea of safety of employees. Of course, we all want to ensure the safety of employees. That is without a doubt. I did have a constituent who had reached out to me with some concerns around in-person early voting, absentee voting, and I am in a very good relationship with the police department, so I went to the police chief, or perhaps even command of work, just talking about safety. So I was aware of some, I shouldn't say anecdotal, because that was a very real situation, but I was not aware of the issues, perhaps to the depth that we're being told that they are currently being felt by city employees, because I do ask some city employees, and there are concerns like any public place, any bank, any retail store, any area where you have heightened tensions as a society, you are going to come across hostile and angry people. perhaps we need to protect our staff. But what is so frustrating to me is that there has been at least one, possibly two budget cycles where we were not told that safety of employees was a concern of the administration, because if we had been told that, we probably would have found ways to budget money to make this building more secure. So that's why I'm getting frustrated with this defense of, well, it was for employee safety. If that was the case, then we should have known about it. A year ago, and then a few months ago, we were talking about $100,000 for rebranding. We could have put $100,000 to protect the safety of the employees in this building. So I'm not saying that our employees aren't feeling safe, but if the administration's way of protecting them is putting audio surveillance without notifying the public. I talk about these things to my children, and they have an alderman for a dad, so they get the soapbox and they watch meetings and they hear me rant and rave about certain things. But even my 11-year-old son, when we were talking about this, he said, "Daddy, how did people know to behave better if they didn't know they were being recorded?" I mean, it doesn't pass the logic of an 11-year-old. But yet we're holding on to that. If we would have noticed and had signs in City Hall, people would have been behaving because they knew that there'd be audio and video surveillance of their illegal act. I do have a question because Commander Warwick had mentioned judicial oversight, and this is the thing that I'm really struggling with the most in regards to the Fourth Amendment. When it comes to the audio and the video that's captured by these devices, Commander Warwick, as a police officer, could you initiate or use that unwarranted or unnoticed audio surveillance as justification to charge someone with a crime?
Well, there would have to be a crime for us to go looking for it, or an incident to investigate it.
Okay, so if somebody, and again, I don't know, that's why I'm asking. So you mentioned judicial oversight. So if someone commits a crime at City Hall, would that audio surveillance that up until a month ago was not noticed, would a judge allow that in the courtroom as evidence against the person who committed the act if they didn't know they were being audio recorded?
I can't speak for the judge. I don't know. I can tell you from a police officer's perspective that it is their duty to collect all exculpatory evidence for both sides of that disturbance. And when I say that, any evidence, including video, witness statements, a canvas of people in and around that area where the incident occurred, is all included in that. And then that is what's presented to the judge to determine whether that's allowed in the prosecution of that incident.
Would you, though, as a police officer, would you feel comfortable putting into the record or in the court case, audio that was collected that was not noticed?
What do you mean
at City Hall? For example, if there was an incident at City Hall and there was a crime that was committed and you're trying to create a case against that person that committed the crime, but you are aware of audio recordings that the person who committed the crime was not aware of, would you feel comfortable bringing that to a court of law as evidence of that illegal act?
Yes, because I have a duty to provide all evidence of that incident to the court.
Okay, thank you. That answered the question, because that for me was a big part. Now, on the other end of that, judges could rule that evidence is not admissible if they feel that it was collected without a warrant.
Correct.
So, for example, if you're going to create a case against someone, like drug trafficking, some sort of horrible crime, human trafficking, things of that nature, you would have to go to a judge to get a warrant to wiretap a phone line or to conduct some sort of surveillance or search warrant, would you not?
There's a lot to unpack there, but in a roundabout way, yes.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned judicial oversight. I just wanted to understand it from a police officer's perspective. It's a real shame, as our community, many of us who are in these seats, we do this because we love our community. We love all of our community. We love the liberals, we love the conservatives, we love the Republicans, we love the Democrats. Local government used to be about serving. Used to be about neighbors serving neighbors. Randy, you're shaking your head, but I gotta tell you, man, I love you, but you're one of the most partisan. you're calling out the partisanship on the far fringe of the other side, but you
Alder Brunette,
yourself.
just direct your comments to the chair.
Well, the point is that the most politically motivated people through political parties are the ones that are calling out the actions of the other fringe. And we got to get past that as a society, because we can't be at each other's throats all the time. We can't look at government service as the progressive agenda versus the conservative, and on and on. We can talk about policies and we can talk about how we're going to pick up garbage and make parks safer, but when these partisan political party agendas get thrust into local government, this is the result. It's literally neighbors at each other's throats about things that we should not be talking about. If we're real about even the incidences that happen at City Hall, as horrible and unjustified as they were, the actions of some members of the public who are doing horrible things and treating our staff very poorly, it all goes back to some of these election issues that we have been struggling with from the beginning. Randy, we have had issues with our elections.
Alder Brunette, just
We had
direct your comments to the chair.
Maude, do you have a question? Because you're shaking your head.
Alder Brunette, direct your comments to the chair.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this all goes back to some of the issues that we have had, and we're trying to get past it. But just within the last couple, like election or two ago, there were observers that wanted to observe our election activity, and the clerk or the law department, whoever, kind of had them removed, and they had to go to court to get the city to have the court overturn the city's actions. That frustrates people, and that's justified. We have to get a hold of this stuff. We have to be realistic about some of the things that city government has done the last few years to create this level of mistrust. It's not excusing poor behavior, boorish behavior, violent, verbally abusive language. That should never be tolerated. But if it's truly safety, why didn't we have that discussion? Why didn't we talk about that and look at the better ways of securing our building than putting up audio devices without publicly noticing them? So, thank you.
Alder Campbell and then Alder Scannell.
Mr. Mayor and fellow council members, first of all, I want to straighten out a few things. One of the biggest ones, I think, for the public to understand that seems to be thrown around back and forth is, first of all, I want to clear the ground as far as what people think of me. I only found out about the recording 1 week in our Parks Committee, when it wasn't even to the Parks Committee yet, in the following council. So Wednesday to Tuesday. That's when I found out. I didn't know if it was fact. I found it in an elevator, and someone that I was riding with said, shh, maybe I heard. So I didn't know for sure. That was the first I heard of it. This insinuation that this is a political thing and a move, I want to clear the air. Now, while I ran for office, I actually got 3 people that didn't agree with the election cycle that went on, and they stepped up as citizens, went through the training, and were down at City Hall at several different polling locations. They got involved. That's what I'm trying to do in my own district, is get people involved, because that's ownership of the city, and because they care. The fact that they vote is because they care. They elect us, okay? Again, I've said this before. We have 5 new alders here. A lot of people are sick and tired of it, and I think this is coming to a hilt here. So, I just want to, I'm frustrated. I have a few more facts here. Mr. Galvin, I just want to, hopefully that straightens out, and some other alders here. That's when I found out, okay? So if you want to point to me that, wow, I must have one heck of an imagination then, okay? Now, I have spoken to people that were down here, that were present when stuff happened. And it only shows that they care. Now, I'm going to compare this. Incidents that we keep going over and over on, that, number one, this wasn't proven in a court of law yet. So we can't speculate, just as if we can't speculate against the lawsuit against the city, against the mayor, okay? So this thing about getting points and everything is not that. God, I'd be rich if I could. So my biggest problem here is, Mr. Mayor, when I interviewed here and you put me on committee, I was pretty well honest with you. 20-minute conversation with an hour. I gave you everything I had, everything I was made of. You've totally betrayed everything that makes up my soul. And it frustrates me. You've betrayed my trust. You've neglected my honor. I quit a job and started my own because I couldn't work for the president of the company anymore. But you know what? I gave it my best shot to figure out whether I could walk out that door and keep my head on high sand. I gave it my best shot. Now, I don't give up. I decided that I would never work for someone. But I took that and I explained this to some people, and all this frustration because I'm just that mad about it. And it starts with you. I think we have a problem. We try to get facts, but they're blocked because we have an executive branch that I think made a mistake. We're the legislative branch, but we're stuck in the middle. We're a broken branch on the tree that never hits the ground. We're trying to give answers to our citizen. We're trying to ask. We keep getting blocked by all this public stuff. But my problem is with the total distrust. The fact that I can't get answers, I don't blame them. I blame you. And it's just the frustration of lack of leadership. You denied my trust for you. I'd like to think if we're still working together here in the next year that we could build that back. And if we don't, I have to do it all over again. So I'm just trying to do my job and give the best answers I can to the citizens and do my job. Thank you.
Alder Scannell.